And tonight on the Daily Wrap, another company dumps Donald Trump as he rises in the polls. We'll sort it all out for you. Speaking of sorting things out, questions arise as more Hillary Clinton emails are released. And families of the Charleston shooting victims are getting a $29 million taxpayer-funded payout. The question is why? We'll tell you about all of that and more. This is the Daily Wrap, live from New York City. And welcome to the Daily Wrap. Rick clearly sending out to his thousands of Twitter followers, put on your television.
Just checking the latest breaking news.
Okay, that's smart. You know, we want to stay
Always
up to date.
Yep.
Well done, sir. And to his right, get back to your phone now. Check on that that horse race that we had that money on.
Yeah.
She is America's pundit and a Philly attorney. Heather Hansen joins us in a nice purplish thing going on. What would you describe it as, that color?
I think it's pink.
All right, we'll go pink.
How do you feel about the voting
And
commentary?
he is the assistant online editor for Commentary Magazine. Noah Rothman is back. It must be a Wednesday. All right, everybody, let's get right to the Daily Download. Okay, Donald Trump under fire and on fire. First, the under fire part, as Macy's is the latest company to sever ties with Trump. Why? For calling Mexicans immigrants drug dealers and racist and things like that. Trump says he was the one who ended the decade-long relationship with Macy's. In a statement, he says, and we quote, "Clearly, NBC and Macy's support illegal immigration, which is totally detrimental to the fabric of our once great country." Both Macy's and NBC totally caved at the first sight of potential difficulty with special interest groups who are nothing more than professional agitators. Noah has a smirk on his face. I'm sure he's going to love to talk about this one. Mr. Trump's immigration comments are certainly not the first controversial comments he's ever made. Why are we seeing such a backlash? While the millionaire may be taking a hit in the wallet, his stock is going up in the polls. A new CNN poll places him in second place behind Jeb Bush with a 12% of the vote in the 2016 matchup. That CNN poll finds Mrs. Clinton would easily beat Jeb Bush 54 to 41%. Rick, he is taking some big hits in the wallet. Obviously, the Trump brand may be heard. Noah's wearing a Trump tie right now. Admittedly, we'll get to that in a moment, but he's surging in the polls. What gives?
Well, first of all, you know, I wonder if it would ever occur to Donald Trump that every now and then it wouldn't kill him to say, you know, Macy's pulled our line, and I feel kind of bad about it.
Right.
You know, what he did, we actually didn't do the entire quote. He came out and said, oh no, I asked Macy's to pull the line after they this. I mean, no, he didn't. They got petitions. 700,000 people signed a petition complaining about it. Macy's decided to do what they did. Trump says, well, I asked them to. You know, it's a small business. It's not significant. It would not kill him just to say, yeah, you know, I'm really sorry. I've had a great relationship with Macy's, and I'm sorry it came to this. But he can't do it.
He never
and
does
this
that.
Is
you know
why,
that.
This is why Trump, you know, he's getting this little bump because everybody knows who he is and he's famous. But we don't have to do anything to Donald Trump to get him out of the race. He will do it himself.
The funny thing is about him, everything Rick said was accurate. But despite him making all these so-called mistakes, he is rising. You could say it's brand name, but his voice is rising above everybody else's. And the way he handles these things with Macy's, I find it amusing and somewhat effective, because whenever, like, say, the Daily News has a headline about him, he goes, they're going out of business, they're horrible, it's a bad paper, they don't have any advertising left. Like, he always attacks the messenger, and he never allows it to get to him. He creates his own Teflon. So I know he can't win.
That's not going to work in a debate, by the way.
It'll be entertaining. Yeah. And again, as you know, no one knows, that's our #1 goal here. Anyway, Heather, please speak, because
well,
I
think that the reason he's rising in the polls is because people like what he says, at least in part. And they also like the way that he says it, that he does not back down, and that he's not willing to sort of pander to different people. And there's a grain of truth in what he says. You know, in June, the Boston Globe did an expose about the fact that there are convicted rapists who are then let out of jail, and rather than than being deported back to their countries won't take them, and so instead they are being released back into the Boston Globe, which is a liberal paper. So there is a grain of truth that people read in real papers, and then they hear him say these things, and I think that it just adds to their conviction that there's something has to change, and maybe he's the only one that can do it.
No, I think I know all politicians are salesmen, but this really is the super salesman meeting the politician. So the hyperbole is times 10. So you can fact check him like we have in the show and find that there are a lot of falsities in what he says. But it is resonating, which I find surprising. Where does the road, I guess here's the question. Where does the road end where the bump stops and he's no longer in second and he starts to drift down?
Well, I think it stops when we start to learn who he actually is. As everybody's put their finger on is that this is largely the result of his name recognition and the fact that he is famous. And I would push back slightly on the notion that he's resonating because he's saying things that people want to hear. That is true of a certain segment of the grassroots conservative movement who will freely say he's saying things that we want to hear nobody else is saying. But if you look further into, for example, a Quinnipiac poll of Iowa that came out today, showed Donald Trump again in second place behind, I believe it was Scott Walker. If you dig into his numbers, his big support comes from who? Republicans who self-identify as moderate and liberal. That doesn't compute with his red meat shtick. It's all about his name recognition at this point. And once we find out what he actually says and what he believes and the fact that he really doesn't have any principles and will say whatever he can to get ahead, I think that support is going to head.
That's all very true. One thing I just wanted to quickly add. He's polling at about, what, 10, 11% in these various polls. The difference between Donald Trump and these other candidates is he probably has reached his max. It's probably just 10%. So as others start to drop out and other candidates start going up from their 12% to 20, then 25, then 40, he's going to stay around 10%.
That's what I love about these polls, because when you're at 15, you're at the top.
Yeah.
Because you're dividing it by
There's too many
14
people,
or even
right.
16. Scott Walker, he leads an Iowa poll. It's amazing. He hasn't even declared yet.
No.
I forgot. I'm like, oh yeah, he didn't come out and say that
Right.
he's actually
One
running
of the
for
few
president.
left to say
One of the
it.
few. Him and Kasich basically are the only ones left. I think Pete King said he wasn't going to run today, which
Oh,
was
he
really
did?
disappointed. Yeah. So there you go. Well, Mr. Trump spoke exclusively with our own J.D. Hayworth in a special edition of Newsmax Prime, where he says he could beat Hillary Clinton if he gets the Republican nomination.
She's got tremendous skeletons all over the place between the emails and all of the problems that she's got and has developed over years. I think she's very, very beatable. I don't think Bush will beat her, to be honest with you. I think that she will beat him, just like the last time a Clinton beat a Bush. I think it'll happen all over again. It's going to be a replay.
Okay, and by the way, Newsmax Prime with J.D. Hayworth will feature more of that fantastic interview with Trump right after our show. Is Trump onto something here based on what you heard Heather Hansen?
Well, I mean, listen, he's saying nothing any different than any of the other candidates will say as far as going after Hillary. If he thinks that he's the one that's uniquely qualified to beat her, I think that he is wrong. I think that he, as everyone has said, as things goes on, and especially after the debates, when people actually have to speak their mind quickly without any planned points, he's going to really fall to the bottom.
Before we come to you, Iowa Congressman Steve King is standing by Mr. Trump's remarks. Let's hear him now.
Well, I would say to Donald Trump, I appreciate the scrappiness of him when he's attacked by other people. He counterattacks and plunges forward, and he delivers more facts to support the statement that he's made. Now, it'd be nice if we could always talk nice about these things and couch these things in terms, but I've done that a lot, but I never get quoted, Chris. So sometimes you have to say it real plain so people understand it.
And Mr. King is no stranger to controversy himself. He got into hot water a couple of years ago when he told Newsmax TV that Mexican immigrants have calves the size of cantaloupes because they're hauling 75 pounds of marijuana across the desert. Is Trump just telling it like he is, or is there more than what he's saying, Rick Unger?
Well, let's just consider the source who just got behind Mr. Trump. I don't think you need to say any more. Words can't describe how I feel about Representative King. He's horrible. And if I were Donald Trump, I would not be thrilled to have his endorsement.
Very well. Noah?
I like Steve King. I think what he's saying here is that the conservative movement wants to see pugnacity. They want to see somebody who takes it to the mattresses. And Donald Trump is not the person to do that smartly. But they do want to see that, and somebody should be able to fill that void, I think, if they recognize that this is an opportunity.
It's an interesting saying that you just said, taking it to the mattresses. I hadn't heard that.
That's an idiom.
It's an idiom. Thank you. See?
Didn't invent it. I will take credit for it.
Okay.
It's the Donald Trump.
I think it
side.
has to go
I guess
to
so.
Francis Ford Coppola.
All right, Heather, last word, 10 seconds.
Listen, I think everyone has said it well. We're going to be tired of Trump sooner or later. I know you won't.
But for
but I
now,
am.
with 500 days left, maybe we're not. Anyway, we want to hear from all of you about all things Trump. So go to newsmaxtv.com/comments and let your voice be heard. They're cheering at the control room. Please send some emails. More after the break. Please stay tuned.